Live from a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs Podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Fernay, and the occasional guest will dive in and pick apart the stuff that really matters most to you. We're too lazy to actually solve any of these problems, but we can definitely stir the pot. From schools, politics, parking in the fire lane, to those horrible people who drive BMWs. And here with this week's episode, live from the kitchen table, Tim Hamilton and John Fernay.
Hey, this is the Maryland Crabs. We are here on the rooftop of Metropolitan, which is not quite open yet, which is a bummer, but it's we're on the rooftop of Metropolitan Kitchen and Lounge, a wonderful dining place on West Street. And you got to make sure you follow us. And I'm noticing there's not a whole lot of 5-star ratings on iTunes, so get on that. Find us on iTunes. Rate us.
Well, it's not like we have like one stars.
Yeah, leave them 5 stars.
We just want more 5-star.
Yeah, rate us.
You're making it sound like it's worse than it is.
Leave a comment. Go to Google Play. You can find us on iHeartRadio. If your Alexa Amazon app is listening, hey Alexa, tune in the Maryland Crabs Podcast, because you can find us there. This is John Fernay. My co-host Tim Hamilton is drinking a beer right now. Has a mouthful of Guinness.
Yes, I do. It's past 6. I can do that.
Absolutely.
Past 6 a.m.
And what we're about to do is we're about to talk about marijuana. And we've got 2 great guests here with us tonight. We've got Caroline Phillips and Kevin Cranford.
They are so high.
How are you guys?
Hello. We're doing very well. We're happy to be here tonight.
Actually, they're dressed really well. They make me feel like shit.
Oh, they've got that whole D.C. Baltimore Metro vibe.
Professionals. We're professional about it.
I feel very underdressed right now. And it was so hot before, I was going to take off. I'm wearing like a fleet or whatever this is, and I was going to just have a T-shirt. And now I feel like I want to go get a suit
T-shirt.
jacket.
That's like a standard outfit. He wore it to the governor's office when we talked to the governor.
I did actually. Yeah, he was jeans in this.
Well, the rate things are going, you could probably change clothes about 6 times a day and still be okay with the weather.
That's Maryland.
Weird, yeah.
This is unbelievable. But medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, huge news all over the world. And it's exciting news. I haven't smoked in a long time.
Oh,
okay.
In a long time. I tend to be a law abider. So right now recreational use is not too legal here in Maryland. I know
you're getting excited to abide soon.
Perhaps.
But my glaucoma is just killing me.
I know my son was out and he was looking at a job out in Denver, and he was out there around his birthday, and he found out some of the shops out there, they would give him a free joint for their birthday.
Oh wow.
And he was very impressed with that.
It's a good promotion.
And he says, okay, we need like a yellow pages and find out where the rest of these shops are. Because
there's an app for that.
Going into my birthday.
It's like driving around to every Applebee's in the city to get free dessert. That's really funny.
Right, like a burrito at Chipotle or something like that. But there's a lot of stuff going on with the medical marijuana and the recreational use of marijuana. D.C. has decriminalized it and legalized it, I guess, is for,
It's a thing in D.C. We have legal cannabis. It's a little bit confusing. You've probably heard people talk about the gray area in D.C. law.
That is D.C. law, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of gray area in many D.C. laws, but this in particular is interesting because an adult can possess up to 2 ounces of cannabis, one for personal use and one to gift to a friend, but they're not allowed to purchase cannabis.
Some friend.
Within the district.
Within the district.
That's a lot, too.
Unless you're inside a medical cannabis dispensary. So 2 adults who meet each other on the street.
I cannot purchase it for recreational use in a medical dispensary.
No, but if I saw you on the street, I could walk up to you in plain view of a police officer and hand you an ounce of cannabis from my hands to yours. We don't even need to put a bag around
And you just made like you're holding a cantaloupe. That's
about an ounce, about a cantaloupe.
I feel like that's like 2 good handfuls.
That seems reasonable.
Seems
an
reasonable.
ounce.
But yes, I could present that to you in front of Metropolitan Police and say, this is my gift to you, and you could thank me, and we could go our separate ways, and that would be cool. But the second anything of value is exchanged, that's where it becomes illegal.
A penny, a hat, a T-shirt.
A napkin.
So they got ahead of themselves where they say, look, we don't care where it came from, but don't tell us where it came from, but you can't sell it. So it just
you can grow it. You can grow it. That's legal.
Oh, I didn't know you could.
Yep.
I'm a killer gardener.
Oh, you can have
Seriously.
up to 6 plants. So I think you can have 4 adults in a home.
Yep.
Each adult can have 6 plants.
Get out! I had no idea. Seriously.
Honey, we're moving. We're moving to D.C. Back up.
That's the great thing about the law. It's like you get to look at like the border. It's Maryland and D.C. So in D.C. you can do all that stuff. In Maryland you can't.
Right.
So then it looks kind of foolish on Maryland to play the wait and see game when the sky hasn't fallen over D.C. yet. So we're not really sure what.
But see, that has what I mean. The sky hasn't fallen anywhere. So if you're looking at Colorado, you're looking at Washington State. And it was funny the dire predictions that you were just going to have Jess Spicolis everywhere, just ridiculously high and no.
You have the same amount.
And, yeah, exactly. That's why. That's. I mean, it's just. I think there's very few people saying, "Well, now that it's legal, I'm going to smoke it." I think that
Well, we had our
doing
own
it.
Annapolis police chief testify before a Senate committee a couple of years ago and discussed about the 34 deaths that happened in
Well, he read
Colorado the very
the-
first day that
Read
they
an onion-
legalized it.
Read a good onion piece. It'll get you every time.
Oh yeah, they somebody handled
He was
the wrong
banging.
thing.
No, but
If you believe it hard enough.
he was a great guy. He was banging his head after that. He goes, "Yeah, no one told me." I guess I felt stupid afterwards.
I was down there testifying in Annapolis. when that
I
happened.
just want to tell, okay, Caroline, tell us a little bit about you and where you are. I mean, you're just not somebody that was walking down the street of D.C. handing me a handful of pot and saying, this is my gift to you.
But we could do that. No, so yes, I'm Caroline. You've already covered that.
Right.
But I'm the founder and producer of the National Cannabis Festival, which is a celebration of progress on legalization that takes place in D.C. every April, the weekend after 420. So this year it's on April the 22nd at RFK Stadium. My background is in human rights. But about 2 years ago, when cannabis legalization came to D.C., I realized that marijuana, once I started learning about things like the inequity in arrest rates for people of different races, I realized that this really is kind of a civil rights and human rights issue as well.
So back up. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'm pretty familiar with. So you're talking about like, well, for example, I know that there's a disparity when you talk to about when whites and blacks are arrested for crack cocaine versus cocaine.
Yeah.
Is that even though they're the same thing, the exact same thing, molecular level, everything, but the penalties for crack cocaine are so much higher. So as a civil right to say, why is it higher in?
Right.
So if you have black areas where you have the arrest the arrest rates skyrocket, it's unfair because there's no difference in drug use between races.
Right.
Exactly.
So the drug use is the same, but the arrests are higher in the African American community
difference
simply
in
because it's a
policing.
difference in policing and a difference in perception in the product. So it's just a packaging issue.
Well, and it's, I think, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but 9 in 10 people arrested for marijuana crimes are African American in Washington, D.C. So that was the state before Initiative 71 was passed, which was the initiative that was passed into law so that cannabis is legal in the city. While the arrest rates have been drastically brought down since legalization, that discrepancy still remains. So I think in 2015 there were 128 people arrested for cannabis. Of that 128 people, I think 120 of them were people of color. Mm-hmm. So at least we brought that down from thousands of people getting arrested to now, it's more like 120. But it's still not good that we have this disparity, especially in a city like D.C., which has so many large universities. You can't tell me that none of those college students are smoking cannabis.
American University kids.
My daughter goes to American. My
There's
daughter,
cannabis on that
and
campus.
she's high all the
right?
time.
my daughter and my wallet go there, but it's
Yeah, but in all defense, it's not like UVA or anything. These are like high-end universities. I just feel like they're studying. I don't see them as
my
party
great
animals.
story out of American was last year when the frat house busted. It was in Maryland, in
Yeah.
Bethesda or something like that. The police went in, like 200 people there. There was like some passed out girl being just tossed into an Uber type.
God.
It was that type of a party. Police went in and they did a breathalyzer on the ambient air, and it was drunk.
That's amazing.
That's a party.
I mean, they said beer was like soaking through the floors into the basement.
Go home
and
air.
whatever.
But see, I have a friend of mine who's a cop, and he goes, if I'm going to take someone down, if I'm going to arrest someone, give me someone who's high any day over
9
someone
times
who's
10,
hammered.
right?
He goes, they're peaceful, they're singing, they're hugging me.
It's
He goes,
funny
it's great. He goes,
when you go down to like
They're offering me
hear, like
Fritos.
when you go into like state legislators, you hear police say that. At least the ones that are on our side of the thing, they're all for it. They don't want to arrest people who are high.
I'll tell you, throwback to when I was bartending back in the 80s. Yeah, we used to have a
1880s.
Grateful Dead tribute show that would come in, and we didn't allow smoking or any kind of drugs in the club. Well, smoking you could smoke at the time, but no drugs in the club. And part of our job would go around and confiscate it, and we'd smoke
sounds
it
like a
afterwards.
great
But
job, yeah.
we'd take care of it afterwards. But it was. you go to any of the other show, like if it might have been a rock show or something like that, it usually ends up in somebody getting really pissed off at you. You got to call the bouncer over, and he gets thrown out.
Right.
And we still get the drugs. Okay, you go to Living Earth, which was the Grateful Dead guys, and they were all pot. They're
the hemp clothes
and so mellow. It's like, dude, man, you're not allowed to smoke that joint in here.
Oh man, I'm sorry, dude. You got me. The most peaceful show ever.
Pot. He goes, oh really? Yeah. Oh man, this is a bummer. Okay.
Right.
I mean, it was like, and that was the end of the thing. And if they were nice enough, they could come see me before they left at the end of the night.
I mean, that's what's so interesting about this community. I think there are so many. I think now with cannabis becoming legal, people are starting to meet and realize that there are people in this community that don't necessarily fit like kind of the stoner stigma, but I think people are also realizing how peaceful and welcoming this community is. We had 5,000 people at RFK last year for this first event. Not a single arrest, not a single medical incident, not a single incident of violence.
Any fights? No?
No fight, nothing.
And last year was your first year for the festival, correct?
Yeah, but it was the first year.
You had 5,000 people, right?
Yeah, I would challenge someone to point out another large festival of at least 5,000 people that is serving alcohol.
Of people, period.
That doesn't have at least one of those things happen.
I can't point out a single night at Echo Stage.
Right.
Let's go back a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, I'm mid-40s.
Before we get into it, I want Kevin. What's your?
Oh, sorry about that.
Yep. What's your background? Just so everyone knows where.
My name is
you're
Kevin Cranford. By day, I work in the video production field. By night, I'm a cannabis activist.
I think you say crime fighter. That would be so cool.
Part-time crime fighter. I run a website newsletter called Splim, which is a parenting and pot website, and I'm on an application to be a manager of a dispensary in Maryland.
What's the website? Splim?
Splim. SPLIMM. Splim.
Parenting and pot.
Yep.
I don't want to brag, but
Is
my
that
kids are already
.com?
smoking weed on a high school level.
Congratulations.
Good
for you. Good for you.
Are you a parent?
They're very good.
I am a parent, a new parent. Have a soon-to-be 1-year-old, Kevin
don't
the
really.
third.
Congratulations. You got 17 and a half years of hell then.
Yep, I got a lifetime of it because I still give my parents hell. So,
And I'm gonna be honest with you. You are the two of you are not what I expected. I expected kind of like a Cheech and Chong sort of Jessica, and this is again. We're gonna get pictures. It'll be on the website, but I feel.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I love when people meet me like, "You smoke?" I'm surprised. I didn't think you smoked. I'm like, "Good."
Well, my background was in producing. I produced like major policy events for various departments in our government for a long time. I produced major human rights events. But I mean, I think that is what's so cool about this community is seeing people come out of the cannabis closet, so to speak. I've run into so many people.
I know a lot of people who smoke that you wouldn't
And
think.
they'll lie if you say they do. Yeah.
So I mean, and actually, that kind of brings me to the point that I was talking about, like the whole legalization. So I'm in my mid 40s, and I think I've known people who smoked forever, and it was everyone was kind of not in high school and college, but it was if you would have told me there's going to be legalization someday, I'd say absolutely not. And it just happened all at once. It really, and right now it's happening so much faster. I never thought I'd see this, to be honest. And I know we have a ways to go, and with the Trump administration sessions, there's going to be some issues. And I think I'd read the other day, and I should have some research, but it was the one of the congressmen from like the Midwest that he's talking about looking at D.C. marijuana laws because they're constantly Congress is always tinkering with D.C. even though it's not like beeswax. But I never thought I'd see it. And when I think about the legalization, one of the big reasons is I was thinking about this the other day. If you look at anyone who's running for office, and you see them in college, they're the people that they're pretty straight-laced. They know they're going to run for office at some day, and the people who run, they're straight-laced, they're kind of square, except for something. They're not going to be
Barack Obama smoke a bunch of weed.
All right, you got a couple asterisks.
The last three
the
presidents.
cocaine.
I'm not sure about Trump, but
You want to stay on the podcast, or that's? But I mean, like Bill Clinton when he said, "I inhaled." I always thought that, and he goes,
he told the lie.
Or no, he
didn't
goes,
inhale.
I didn't inhale. I believe he didn't. I believe he's sitting around with a group of people, and he's a party, and he wants to fit in.
Just being cool,
He's,
the cool
so
square.
he's going to be the cool. Yeah, so he's smoking, going, "This is some great marijuana. I'll have another marijuana."
Another marijuana
I've enjoyed
cigarette.
these reefers.
Yeah, I'll have 2 marijuanas. But so I mean, so on a practical sense, when it comes to passing this legislation, like my mother, I grew up Irish Catholic, and we're drinkers, for the most part. If I told my mother I smoked weed, it would be like crack. It was because she was not in.
I think it's like they got the baby boomers coming of age, and they all have a history with marijuana.
Right.
They didn't smoke it, maybe not, but maybe their roommate did, maybe a friend did. somebody, well, if the veteran did, they've seen marijuana. They know it's not as dangerous. So now baby boomers have kids who are millennial, our generation, and now it's time to actually put these laws into effect.
I think you look at a lot of little temperance that goes on all around. We've got science that's backed up. Marijuana is this horrible drug that you smoke a joint and you're going to die. But, so
science doesn't back that up.
Well, that's
only Jeff Sessions backs that up.
It used to back it up, or they used to make it try to back
Reefer
that up.
Madness.
right. But it's been debunked now at this point.
Well,
okay?
except for they said kids. They said for developing for people under the age of 25. When you talk about development, there may be some issues there, and they're still studying that. But other than that, there's nothing.
But nobody's looking to sell this to under 18.
Yeah, no, I think that's like true of pretty much everything.
anything.
Under
You
25, anything
either,
too much is not good.
Yeah. As he takes another sip of his
Actually,
Guinness.
any age, anything too much is not good.
Yeah, but I mean, we've got an era of acceptance that is unprecedented certainly in my life. Okay, we look at 20 years ago. I see two gay guys walking down the street, and I would have a slur for them.
But John's a bigot, so
now it's not.
Right.
I mean, it's cool. Do whatever you want to do. It doesn't really matter. We're seeing an era of acceptance. I mean, it started out in California with what was it, Proposition 8. That was the marijuana in California, wasn't it? That it was, and then it wasn't. It was overturned and went back and forth a little bit. Then you look into Washington. You look into Oregon now has done it, and certainly Colorado. And people are moving around. There's a movement in the federal government, as you had mentioned, Caroline, that we've got people that will be actually speaking at the Cannabis Festival.
Yes.
They're advocating for this. So, I mean, it is moving
But the laws
forward.
take a while to catch up. So, I mean, Kevin can... I mean, you're more versed. I mean, so we have an era of acceptance kind of coming on where people go, it's not that bad. But still, there's a lot of resistance to it. So, once the dominoes start to fall, so where are we now? Where we've got Washington?
Washington, Colorado, Alaska, California, Massachusetts, D.C.
Maryland.
No, I'm talking about legalized.
Yeah,
legalized.
we're decriminalized.
I'm missing a couple more. Oregon. There's about 7.
Did you say
8.
Washington?
Yeah.
Yep.
But the issue is, from what I understand, is that it's still illegal on a federal level.
Right.
So all of a sudden you have these piles of money, these Scrooge McDuck piles of money, and there's
cash.
No,
you can't bank it. So I mean, Congress and legislators are always going to be a step behind the people. So we're going to have to keep on pushing on them to get these laws fixed and tailored because, like you said, in those legal states, people are sitting with like vaults of cash, and people are getting stuck up trying to take their money to banks and stuff. So they're going to have to catch up on that end. But things are slowly but surely, progressively going in our way. People aren't afraid of it anymore, I think.
I feel like cannabis has been America's best kept secret for generations.
Right.
And now
George Washington grew it.
Exactly.
Everybody has a relationship
I think
with
it's
it.
also kind of like there's a social movement happening where a lot of people are starting to pay attention to our justice system and how other people are being treated and how we're treating each other. This at the time, as Kevin mentioned, that baby boomers are kind of coming of age and changing policies. I don't think I've talked to anybody in years that doesn't know or doesn't have someone in their life that either medicates or uses cannabis recreationally in one way or another.
Or they don't know. It's sort of like, we were talking about the gay thing. I always say that I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I didn't know any until I worked in TV too.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, I was like one of the token straight people. And then I'm like, I didn't know any gay people until now. And they're like, yeah, you did. I'm looking back in my life. Oh, yeah.
It's so funny.
Joe Sullivan.
If you allow people to be themselves, as long as they don't hurt anybody, I'm like, what's
no?
the
And
harm,
we're the perfect example. I mean, I know some professionals who do it. I mean, it's just, and I think it's moving in Maryland right now. It's moving quickly in that direction. I mean, we have, I want to say 18 growers who, is it 8 or 22? 22 of the cannabis growers, because the process is,
right.
far better than I do, is that you have the cannabis growers, and I think we have one per county here in Maryland.
Yep. I think it's like 15 grower licenses came out.
That's like 104 dispensary licenses?
Right. About 20 processing licenses came out. People that take it in the middle and get it to dispensaries.
But I mean, take me through this. Okay, now if I'm growing pot, okay, I've got a little garden out there.
I've seen your yards. You're not growing pot,
and I
can't grow grass.
Put my seeds out. And I'm looking to ultimately sell this through a dispensary. That's my end, to get it to somebody medically. Let's just say. I mean, so now how does this grow? Okay, I grow the pot, I harvest it,
Okay.
and now we jump into a processor.
So
what does a processor do?
So right now there is no market for homegrown cannabis to end up in medical dispensaries.
In DC.
Okay, let's say I'm a medical grower.
Okay, so you're a big giant cultivator. You got like a big giant warehouse.
Right.
You've harvested it. You're going to give it to a processor. Cured
so
it.
I have grown this on my farm.
Mm-hmm. Most likely indoors.
The security is pretty heavy from what I understand.
I know Anne Arundel County was very strict on what they need with the security guards and everything else. So
Armed
medical
troops
marijuana
outside.
is an indoor grown product?
Well, for security.
In DC right now it is. I know that in Maryland they were looking at
There's
outdoor
a couple
growing.
outdoor grows I've heard about or seen started, but I think a majority of them are going to be indoor grows.
But remember, because we're a temperate climate, so, if you want to grow in the summer, that's fine. But, if you want to grow all year round.
Some people have like mixed-use greenhouse. You could open it up and let the sun come in, then close it for like the winter months and stuff like that. But
right, it's a big mechanized, like 5-10 acres, glass houses. All
it's a big
so much
business.
simpler when I could just buy a joint off a guy in New York City. It was a lot.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, the weed that you were buying in the 1950s when you were a kid, it's 10 times stronger now. Yeah.
That's part of the reason I've often said I'm scared shitless to just buy some stuff off of the street. And in high school, I would go into Manhattan. I would buy a pin joint off of some guy underneath a bridge in Central Park. I knew about 12 different doormen that could score me. We weren't talking pounds. We were talking, ounces and nickel bags, dime bags.
With your private school patch wandering around.
You walk around and say, "Hey, dude, you got anything?" Yeah.
As
come on back in
legalization
20 minutes later, and $40 you get it.
As legalization spreads, though, there's going to be like mama joints, daddy joints, like for older folks who don't want to get 20%, 19% THC that can want to smoke like the 60s and 70s. So I know like not every older folks like it. So
That's nice
okay,
about
that'll give me my
program.
next question though. Then we can buy in a dispensary different grades. I could get the 1980s version.
It's like a liquor store. You can get your Bud Light or you can get your Guinness.
The dispensary experience is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
And people shouldn't be intimidated by it.
It's actually pretty amazing. It's almost like a sommelier. A friend of mine told me that he goes to in Denver, and they're saying, "What do you want for this? Do you want a nice smooth finish?" And he's like,
Exactly.
Look at this. Look at the hairs there. Smell
they
it.
show you different. Here's some different options.
They're not going to be like old
here's some
yuppie
different
wine guys,
methods
are
of
they?
They're going to be just like yuppie wine guys. They're going to be just like it.
And like the dispensaries in DC are all very nice. You walk in, there's a beautiful lounge or lobby for you to wait. There are probably
Very
magazines.
clean, well lit.
You check in with someone who's behind a counter who takes your card and puts your name on the list.
No shady doormen.
They're coupled. They can only take back a certain number of people to the actual dispensary area at a time.
So in DC they don't display marijuana.
They do in the back portion of the dispensary. The front office area is sort of where someone who doesn't have a card might walk in and say, I'm interested in getting a card. Once you get past the locked portion of the dispensary, you have to have a medical card to be back in.
That I think is what's going to happen here because in Anne Arundel County, I know that they cannot have, they say the law says you cannot have marijuana on display in the dispensary.
Well, so we cut Kevin off. So we're talking, so we've gone from the grower, we have the stuff cured.
Yep. So now you go to the dispenser, or excuse me, a processor. So they're going to make it dispensary worthy. So they're going to trim it up, take off all the big leaves, clean it up, package it
Did you say bigly?
Big leaves. big leaves.
Now, are they packaging it? Don't they mostly arrive in just the jars?
It all depends. So they can package it in specific things, or they can give it to them in 10-pound bricks, and they'll break it down. And they'll break it down at the dispensary.
I like the deli experience at the dispensary, where you go in, you're like,
I'd
like 3 grams of ham and 3 grams of cheese. But
Boar's head
go
weight.
in and you watch them put it all into the package for you. It gives you that kind of like fresh, direct feel, farm to table, if you will.
Farm to table. Here in Maryland, I don't know how. Well, you probably follow every state, but in Maryland, we had an issue with the Black Caucus in Maryland, which has a problem with the fact with the way the licenses were dispensed, and they're saying that any of the black companies were not represented in the process.
Right.
Because again, there are only 15 growers. Now, I don't know if they were talking about the dispensers too, but
I think they had a problem with kind of the whole way everything was rolled out.
And the impression I got, by the way, is because I was following it very closely, and I still follow it very closely, and I was reading the website as they were updating, and there was a lot of loose threads and loose ends that were left open, and it would change a lot. And I get it, because you have a bureaucracy who, they're saying, okay, now it's decriminalized, and now we're going to have growers, and they're kind of making up the rules as they go, and this is completely different than anything they've done.
We gave all of the the power of rolling this out to the commission, the marijuana, or
Right.
the cannabis commission, so they kind of have the leeway, like you said, and kind of leave a couple loose ends here and there. There was something in the legislation that said there needs to be geographic diversity as well as like racial diversity,
Right.
but the racial diversity part got nixed because it was unconstitutional. Like there was no way to, I guess, police that or put
And
that
there's
into
not
effect.
many licenses. 15's not
Right.
many.
No,
and
and that's where the big
Maryland's
money-
small, but I mean,
And the big money's going to be at the top side,
Right.
at the growing side. So now that you have those 15, and now there's no people of color, or I guess women also within that 15, and the business is going to look like a lot of other businesses.
I have a friend of mine. He's a friend of John's and mine, and he's Latino. And right now he's like, "Wait a minute, what about the Latinos?"
I
And I'm like,
missed
"No, that's
Well, I think so can we go back to the geographic diversity thing? I thought that the real issue there was that, Maryland intended on this geographic diversity, which makes sense because you want an even distribution of.
Eastern Shore, Western,
Yeah. Right,
Central.
right.
I heard that the issue they ran into was while this was their intention, they didn't explain that to the applicants. So people who'd scored really well were sometimes bumped off the list by a different county or a different area that had no representation, but there was an application with a lower score that would serve that area that got bumped up because they didn't need however many people in this one county.
They needed something for
So
Western
those
Maryland.
people who put in these great applications that scored in that top 15 ended up losing their spots, and I think that is the beginning. That is the first beginning of like the what the hell. Then the next was the lack of diversity, because I think what is cool about this industry, and as a woman, I hope the women listening can appreciate this, is that we have the opportunity, since these conversations are happening right now, to not let what happened in the .com boom happen in the cannabis industry. It is amazing that this early in kind of the life of legal cannabis, we're all sitting around this table today talking about racial disparity, talking about gender equality in this new industry.
Well, I worked in the growing industry for a while, and so I know it pretty well. And it is a very male industry, extremely, because most of them are family run, and they're very patriarchal, and that's a stereotype, but it is true.
Yeah.
So I think this is, and as a matter of fact, they're mostly very conservative people, but green is green.
Right.
So I think whether if you have a problem with it or not, if it's legal, they're going to do it. But and most in the industry is mostly white, mostly male. Like the .com is a perfect example of that. So I think this happened so quickly. I mean, it just seemed it wasn't I think it was a gradual process for the country, but then in Maryland it just happened like overnight, and all of a sudden the Cannabis Commission, they rolled out these rules that were probably borrowed from other states and kind of cobbled together. So, and I think there's a lawsuit involved, or at least they're bending that about.
Yeah, they're.
But they haven't started growing yet. They're not going to start. I don't think they start distribution and everything till the end of the year.
Yeah, I know people are building the grow ops now. I don't think. Yeah, it's going to be a little while. It's going to be.
I know in here
the
they're talking about potentially at the end of 2017 to have that dispensary opened up here on West Street.
Okay.
Which is going to be on the corner of West and Route 2. But I'll tell you what, hey, let's take a quick break, but when we come back, if maybe you guys, if you can just, maybe we can just chat about where the marijuana industry is going nationally in Maryland, in D.C., and certainly let's talk about the Cannabis Fest. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Spring is waiting outside your door, and it's time to make your lawn and garden beautiful again with Homestead Gardens. Their experts will show you how to make a safe lawn for kids and pets using the area's largest selection of organic lawn solutions. Share family fun and satisfaction growing food, flowers, and shrubs together. Visit Homestead Gardens in Davidsonville or Severna Park, Maryland, and go to homesteadgardens.com for deals, events, and workshops. Live life outdoors this season with Homestead Gardens.
If you don't like huge draft beer selections, don't go to Union Jack's. If you're not looking for an incredible menu and dozens of screens to catch your favorite teams, I repeat, do not go to Union Jack's. Not into darts and pool? Good. Live music not your thing? Perfect. Bottom line, if you are not interested in the best dining and bar experience in Annapolis, avoid Union Jack's. But if this all sounds totally friggin' awesome to you, visit Union Jack's in Annapolis, just across from Whole Foods in the Annapolis Town Center. Union Jack's, not your old-style pub.
And we're back, and only one person got a new beer, and it was me. Everyone else switched to water. I feel a little self-conscious
Kevin
right
got
now.
nothing, so.
You didn't even get water. Do you want a cracker or
I'll be all right. I'll be fine.
dry piece of toast?
Save it. We got something for you when we eat dinner here. Do you like lamb?
I do.
Your lamb burgers are awesome here.
Done.
That's exciting.
Never had a lamb burger.
No, there will be.
Sorry, you bite in, it bleats back at you.
Yeah,
Just
I'm not
kidding.
gonna.
Are you a vegetarian?
No, I eat everything.
Okay. You look like you have the potential to be a vegetarian.
No, I like vegetarian foods, but it doesn't mean that I don't eat meat things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like how you said
My
you
kind of
look like a vegetarian.
What does that mean?
You're vegetarian all over you.
I'm wearing, I have a leather jacket on. That's not so vegetarian. And cows
That's not vegan.
He doesn't even
but
racially
it's,
profile. He just food profiles.
That's right. Yeah,
preference.
food profile.
I bet you had a Twinkie before you got here, didn't you?
No vegans up here, right?
But you're listening to the Maryland Crabs. We are back. Tim Hamilton is my co-host. I'm John Fernay. We are joined today by Caroline and Kevin.
Don't call her Carolyn.
And we're talking about marijuana.
Carolyn's. That's what Brian Regan says. They have a thing about that. Never call a Carolyn a Caroline. Or
I've
vice
really
versa.
just had to make that not a thing in my life because it happens so much. So I'll reply to both. You can call me
get over
almost
it.
anything as long as it starts with a C. Actually,
No.
I take that all the way back.
Walk
Not
down there.
almost anything. Just kidding.
That's true.
Brian Regan has a great bit on that. He goes, "Hey, Carolyn, that's Caroline. It's Caroline, Brian. It's Brian." Anywho,
Okay.
we're talking weed. So, all right. So for those squares, let's go through the process of what happened. So let's say that 10 years ago, there was no weed anywhere except for Grateful Dead and Fish concerts.
Right.
And
University of
And
Mississippi
the black
had
market.
legal weed.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
weed
University
for-
of Mississippi did?
has weed for research purposes. Only one place in the country, University of Mississippi,
On the campus.
behind guarded gate.
Moldy weed, nonetheless.
Moldy, nasty, disgusting.
The
government's weed is
1960
moldy, is what
weed.
they
If you want that
realize.
weed, you go down there. They still got it.
I just
It's like
picture
vintage weed.
I just picture
Exactly.
experimental weed where guys are going, okay, put down this.
They got that one seed from that one bust back in the day, and they've been growing
That's
the
that
same
one.
plant.
That's Bob Marley used to smoke
Yeah.
from this seed.
It's like a sourdough starter. It just keeps
Exactly,
It goes on
exactly.
forever. So jump forward 10 years. So all of a sudden, the seal is broken by
California.
Colorado.
There was some that decriminalized before.
When decriminalization simply means that it's not legal, but if you get popped for it,
it's a
Like
speeding ticket.
misdemeanor, yeah.
right. So all right. So that was the first step. So it was not a revolution so much as it just kind of.
Well, where did the whole
crept in.
revolution start? Colorado was the first one to legalize it, but
Right.
did it?
I
No,
think
it
it
was
was,
Colorado.
either
California?
California or
California.
Alaska, or the first to decriminalize it back in the 70s. I think California came after Alaska, and then legalization started with Colorado.
And that was your social experiment. And as a matter of fact, if you talk about, and this is where I'll give the Republicans kind of a nod, is that they say that when you give the decisions to the states, it becomes what do they call it, a laboratory? That
Laboratory for experiment.
Exactly, and so Colorado was that laboratory.
You bring the state rights argument up. Yep.
Exactly. So that's where it started, and it seemed pretty successful. I have some straight-laced friends from Colorado who've never smoked ever, and they talk about they have friends who are still there who says that everyone's wandering around like zombies, high all the time, and I said that doesn't really jive with what I've heard. And as a matter of fact, they have some spanking new roads and bridges and
Schools, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd say that tax revenue no one's complaining about.
Right.
So Maryland here, we're stuck at the decrim stage right now.
Right.
So you're
But
not
it's a
going to
process, right?
It's definitely a process. It's going down to Annapolis every year and fighting for
that is for specific amounts. I can't have 10 pounds.
10 grams. What you can have in Maryland.
Okay, all right. Now stop this metrics shit. Never.
Yeah. Hell if I know. But
I am
It's a
totally
good handful.
I am totally into making sourdough bread. That's like my thing lately. So I make it every night. I got a digital scale, and I've totally converted to metrics.
What is
Yeah.
what is 10 grams of pot about? Is
that's
that
a healthy handful.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm going with bread flour, which is just a little bit heavier. But I'd say it's if it was bread flour.
if somebody
it'd be
told me 10 grams, I wouldn't know whether it was a joint or.
So actually, if you look up in the Maryland legislature, they have a recording of them arguing how much it should be. So at first, it started off as an ounce, which everybody kind of knows what an ounce looks like nice
Right.
size of a plastic bag.
But no, because weed is so light. Like if you take an ounce, you're like that's not much, but weed is sits on the table.
But so they had this argument down in Annapolis, and they really were like, how much is an ounce exactly? How much can you get? How many joints is in 10 grams? And they didn't have a measurement for it. And these legislators, who are older folks, just battled for about 2 hours on how much should be legal, how much is dangerous. Which again, nothing can kill you, but it was.
You need to convert it into whiskey and kickbacks. Give it into something that they.
Yeah, something that they understand.
I think the measurements will become standard as time goes on, like the measurement for how much a gram should
Right.
weigh and that kind of stuff, so that we can kind of get an idea. Because with alcohol, you have a shot equals one beer equals a glass of wine. So
Right.
hopefully, as weed goes on and evolves, we can.
So you get pulled over,
find a
and
measure.
the officer says, "Can I search your car?" Which I would always say no. But
No.
I mean, but let's say you say yes.
Yep.
And he finds 10 grams of weed.
They don't measure it on the spot, which I think is a problem.
So they take your weed.
They take your weed.
Well, that's not fair.
Officer Cool might just give you
I
a
would
ticket,
carry a
let you
digital
go.
scale with me, just going, you know what, let's solve this right now.
Officer Less Cool. Though.
Officer
Yeah,
Less-
no, that's a
Officer
good
Less
idea.
Cool, like, this is 11 grams, and you're going to jail tonight.
Just-
Yeah, just blow on the scale or not tear it the right way, and then you're screwed.
I like to think, though, that police in Maryland and everywhere understand that there are more important
I don't think
crimes
that-
to be pursued.
Well,
than
I don't think they
drugs.
want
say
to.
that,
I don't
and
think they want to deal with it.
Yeah,
frankly.
no.
I hate to say this. I mean, if you want to keep in the drug vein here, that I mean, I think the heroin issue that we're seeing nationwide
It's a lot more serious.
is certainly a lot worse.
But
than
marijuana is still a Schedule 1.
somebody.
But they tie
ridiculous.
marijuana to heroin. Somebody,
Yeah, exactly. So,
Jeff Sessions had another magical moment
this
this week.
time together. We
So
got
for
this
people who
horrible
don't know
heroin
this-
crisis. We got to stop legalizing marijuana.
He said
It's like,
marijuana is, and I quote, not much worse, or, yeah, heroin is not much worse than marijuana.
So people who don't know, they have categories of drugs where they rate them as to how harmful they are, in
Right.
society and from a health perspective. And heroin and
Cannabis are in-
cannabis are
hanging out.
They're
Top
they're-
tier.
They're number one. So they're a Schedule 1
cocaine at
drug,
number 2.
right? So yeah, cocaine is Schedule 2.
And I mean, we live in a country that celebrates prescribing opioids to children and to veterans, but won't allow veterans the option for an alternative way to treat their PTSD
which in
or
studies have proven that in
issues
mushrooms.
that they're dealing with. Yeah.
Yeah.
That the studies have shown that cannabis and mushrooms are more effective than any sort of prescription or
I
engineered
think
prescription
that's going to
drug
be
they
the crack
have.
in the drug war, though, is helping veterans and helping people. Because marijuana, is such a helper. When you see somebody, because I'm strictly a recreational smoker, but I've traveled the state doing with Maryland Normal, talking to folks, and I've seen serious people who are have these diseases that they smoke marijuana and it fixes them, or it cures not cures them, but it fixes their ailment for a while, and that's powerful just to watch somebody stutter go away or something.
I'm a big fan of Joe Rogan, his podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so I listen to Rogan's podcast, and he, obviously, I think he's on the cover of
High Times.
the High Times every month.
This podcast.
Him and Bill Maher, but he's always extolling the virtues of that and hemp, which is separate, and he's always trying to separate the two.
Right.
Industrial hemp, yeah.
Right, but
That needs to come to Maryland.
yeah, but so I take everything with a grain of salt, because he'll say, well, it does this, and I'll look up the studies. I'm like, he's right. I mean, it's not. It absolutely. I'm not saying it's a miracle, but I mean, and there's problems that come along with it.
If these
just like there's
legislators were to
anything.
see that face to face, watch somebody smoke and stop shaking, how can you tell them that's not medicine? Or
Well, and,
they don't need it?
and what they're doing the studies also with, I know it's not included, but if you look at any sort of the psilocybin mushrooms, and they've right now they're taking a look at those and what they're doing they're studying it in regard to PTSD, and what they're saying is that the results right now are not just promising, they're pretty incredible. And since we have so many of the veterans are coming back, and they're saying this can go a long way for severe autism and for even Alzheimer's.
Like the microdosing
Right,
stuff,
exactly.
yeah.
That kind of goes back to your schedule, talking about the scheduling. When that comes down, you'll be able to test things and test people and see how things work for folks, instead of just barring it behind a Schedule 1.
But I think people get, like anything else, is that people get an idea in their mind of how something is and what it's supposed to do, and they're not going to deviate from that. It's stereotypical. I mean, we were joking about before, but Reefer Madness, that's the famous movie that came out in the 1940s about marijuana addicts and
Right.
and all the danger they had to.
I will turn into a zombie and eat your family.
And actually, you're not far off. That's
Right,
exactly
no.
what they were saying.
It worked. It worked. People still think like that.
Yeah, but I mean, and when you say drugs is an all-encompassing. Even me, I go to college and everything, but I'm thinking, my kids are now 12 and 13. They're at that age where they're going to start experimenting with things. Yeah. And if I realize, if I found out they were drinking, I probably wouldn't be that upset, because honestly, I was drinking at 13. I was smoking and drinking, and and not that. And I'm not saying that was a good thing, but I see it as somewhat normal. But if they were smoking weed, would I be as cool with it? Maybe I would. I don't know. But I mean, it's part of that stigma that I think everyone has.
I mean, the stigma is the interesting thing, because I mean, Kevin, you have a new baby, but I have younger siblings that are teenagers still, and while I'm not a parent, I care about them
Or
a lot.
not that you know of.
Not that I know of, yeah.
That doesn't work.
But I would kind of much rather my younger brother smoke a joint and spend his evening eating Fritos and laughing at
video games.
really bad reality television, than slug
behind the
half a
wheel,
bottle
drunk
of whiskey
driving.
with his buddies and kick over trash cans and mailboxes at best in the neighborhood, but end up in a car accident
Yeah,
at
right.
worst.
I can drive, dude. I'm fine.
I know so many people that have drunk, not so many, but I know a number of people that have drinked themselves to death.
I'm not dead, John.
And certainly, the car accidents that are out there.
But I feel like
can't
cannabis-
sit there and
Oh, that'd
say,
be ugly if you brought you in
I mean,
for an
Kathy
intervention.
Lanier said it best. So the former police chief of D.C.
Is she missed?
I think, she is missed. I mean, the new guy seems to be fine right now, but, Kathy really got it. She explained to the press when they were like, oh, well, aren't you worried about, this marijuana legalization? She was like, are you kidding? All those people want to do is smoke a joint at their house, eat a bag of potato chips, and watch TV. They are not my concern.
It's the guy on meth that's...
It's the guy on meth, the person on bath
PCP.
salts or crack or
Bath
PCP,
salt.
or
Oh, yep.
let's be honest, it's the person who's had 7 drinks.
Go down to Raven Stadium after a game and watch all the fights in the parking lot.
And therein lies the fact why Kathy Lanier left D.C. Metro Police to run head of security for the NFL.
I gotta tell you,
She gets to deal with pot and booze. It'll be great.
when I was in high school and college, when I'd come back to D.C., I went to a lot of the Grateful Dead fans because I shows over at RFK and stuff, because I liked the music.
Yeah.
But I wasn't a Deadhead. I'm not following them, and I don't have 9,000 live album tapes.
So you don't have a tattoo on your ankle of
I'm good. I don't need a miracle. But it was, but you know what it was I either thought it was a beautiful experience for the people because they're all so cool, but there was that 10% that I'm like, just stop. They were so high. I was like,
That's true of everything, yeah.
There's always
but
open everything.
there's always the wall puncher who's a drinker. I'm Irish, so all my friends are drinkers, and there's always that guy. He's punching the wall. I'm like, all right, come on, Sean.
Right, and you take it in the healthy direction. Even there's always that asshole at the gym that is, like, how many sets have you done?
That's why I don't
Whereas
go to
there
the
are the
gym,
reasonable
obviously.
middle of the road people, and then there are those of us that just don't go. So I think with everything there's extremes, and I know that Kevin and I both kind of network with a great group of activists, advocates, and also aspiring entrepreneurs and more established entrepreneurs. And I think what is great about the cannabis community that's growing around these new policies and laws, none of us are for excessive use of anything.
Right.
We want cannabis to be accepted and looked at just like alcohol. I don't want anyone to feel like a criminal because they go home at night and in the privacy of their home they light a joint and
Instead of
watch
a
their
glass of
Fox
wine.
News or CNN or whatever it is they decide to watch.
I like you said that they watch their Fox News.
CNN, all of these fake news now.
I've been to Western Maryland, Eastern Shore.
I mean, that's the other thing. Cannabis is a
they get down.
bipartisan issue.
Yeah.
Almost
Our libertarian
60% of
friends
Americans
love weed.
want this to be federally legal. If Donald Trump wants to raise that approval rating from the 30s, legalize cannabis, dude. Just do the math.
Yeah.
You'll win half of the rest of the
If you
country
guys,
over.
we were talking about it. If you look at the southern states, because we were talking about this with a friend the other day. I said, maybe with the political climate right now, if the country broke into 5 or 6 different countries, maybe that'd be for the best. No, seriously, maybe it would be for the best if we just divided into 5. And you had the Mid Atlantic, Northeast. You had California. Maybe that would be. But if you looked at the South. And if they were their own country, we're talking about from North Carolina down, that is a massive poverty belt right now. It's the Bible Belt. It's extremely red. Mm-hmm. If you legalized weed and had growers and you taxed it, that would solve a lot of problems. And hemp, hemp,
hemp would do it.
You know what? All right, so educate people right now because I listen to a lot of Rogan, so I get it. But I mean the difference between weed and hemp because it's synonymous when it comes
weed
to
you smoke, hemp you don't.
Okay, let's move on to the next question.
You don't smoke hemp. You make things out of
You
hemp.
could make road surfaces. You could make what's called hempcrete, which is concrete made out of hemp. Insides of
different
BMW
kind of
doors are
rubbers.
made out of hemp.
Yeah, fabrics, clothes.
I hate BMW.
Paper.
So give us a conspiracy theory about hemp. I know it.
They kept it illegal, so was it DuPont couldn't make a bunch of money? Or,
I know. I heard.
Who was the paper maker back in the day?
No.
Publisher.
It was not.
Hearst?
William Hearst.
That's the one. Yeah. Because He had his money in timber.
He had his money in timber, and he was vertically integrated. So for all of his newspapers, this is back in the 1920s.
He went from seed to sale with timber to newspaper.
Yeah, seed to sale. So what he did is that he would grow the stuff, and then he'd process it, and then he would print the newspapers. So what happened at that point was hemp was a much better product, and had been around for a long time.
The U.S. Army was touting it as like hemp for America.
Exactly. So what he did is he tied hemp to marijuana, and they're unrelated apparently.
Right.
Saying that you had these marijuana addicts, and they're coming up from Mexico, and they were just so.
Well, why do they come? Why do they put hemp and marijuana together?
They look the same. They're kind of like they're cousins. They're the same looking plant, but they don't do the same thing.
You
wouldn't
couldn't
want to
smoke hemp, and nothing would happen.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you guys in favor of a minimum age for marijuana, legalized marijuana? I mean, the advocates. I mean, it's like an 18 or potentially 21 and up.
I mean, think that if I was 18 and you're asking me, I would have a different answer.
Right.
But as someone who is not 18, believe it or not, I am comfortable with 21.
So this is like liquor.
Yeah, and I think so. There is one flaw. There is one flaw in this whole treat marijuana like alcohol thing.
You got cigarettes in there, 18.
I don't think there's anything cute about someone drinking a bunch of whiskey in the morning. But I do know a lot of very capable professionals that will medicate with cannabis before they start their workday. So I do want to point out that distinction.
That is true. That's very true. We want it to be treated like alcohol, but it's not alcohol.
It's not alcohol.
Well, all right, so let's go to the arguments against. The arguments against, and Dan Carlin had a really good one, and he said basically that when you look at marijuana and alcohol, and the justification is going, hey, alcohol is much more harmful, and it is to the body, and with the drunk driving. And marijuana is not as harmful. He says, yeah, but okay. But then the counter argument is, do you want to add yet another thing? Do you want to have another inebriant that is available?
I always argue for switching. That's cool. You're right. I don't want another one.
But the other thing is, so if you pull someone over, if the police pull you over and see that you're impaired, they can do BAC to see if you are under the influence. You can't do that for marijuana.
Well, and that's, I think, part of why these laws are important. People were getting pulled over, and the police were saying they were pulling them over because they smelled cannabis. Whether or not that was true, because you can't see it if it's a smell.
Right.
Capture it.
They were using that as a way to get into people's cars. And so I absolutely hear what he's saying. Why add another thing?
No, and he's not saying that. He's saying that's the argument.
That's the argument. I would say this is a thing that has unfairly imprisoned generations of certain communities. So I think that by legalizing cannabis, we can really help a lot of people. So, I don't consider it legalizing another thing in that sense. If anything, I'm like, maybe we should review some of these alcohol laws, because there certainly seems to be a.
But the genie's out of the bottle. Once you legalize something like that, and cannabis is going to be the same way. Mm-hmm. I think I've heard that. Or you look at Trump and Sessions have indicated weekly. I mean, they've not made a big deal about it, that they may start enforcing the federal laws when it comes to cannabis. Now, that runs afoul with their party's view on states' rights.
Right.
So that's going to be an issue. But to be honest with you, I think it's pretty low on their priority list when it comes down to it.
Russia.
And you know what? We're recording this a couple weeks ahead of time, so he may be in prison by now.
They just killed another one of their guys today.
Oh, they did, didn't they?
This is also absurd.
And they threw him off a building or something.
No, they shot him.
I saw somebody. I saw a building and I saw somebody get shot.
Can we get like an HVAC company
and threw off the
No, it
building.
was two separate.
Shot
ones.
the building.
Today, somebody got shot in front of like his hotel or something, and a couple days
there was somebody in the Ukraine, in Kiev. Mm-hmm. I think he got shot, and then
he criticized the invasion.
I think a couple days ago he got thrown off a building.
I don't criticize Putin on this podcast.
No, everyone's great.
I think he's awesome.
We love everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone, God bless America.
Off riding the horses.
Yay, Putin.
45 or bust, all of that. We love you.
No, how do you buy pot in D.C.? It was funny. You were talking about that you can give it, but you can't buy it.
So in D.C., you can legally purchase cannabis from a medical cannabis dispensary.
With a card?
With a card, yeah.
Okay.
So you go through the process. A lot of folks don't know this, but you can go directly to a dispensary and call them and say, I'm interested in getting a medical card. And they'll help shepherd you through that process. In some cases, they may even cover the sign-up fee to help you get through the door.
So in the end, there's got to be a physician that authorizes a medical use of the card. And I don't want to get into whether
down there, not prescriptions.
So, but
no, hold on. Let's get into it. So what exactly? So, I was joking. Glaucoma. Eye stuff. Give me another beer. But could it be something simple as anxiety or?
So in DC, there's a list of specific conditions. A lot of them have to do with chronic pain and chronic illness, like HIV, chronic pain. Cancer patients can seek medical cannabis. For my experience, when I got my medical card, I went in because of chronic pain issues. I had like a back injury when I was something ridiculous, like 7 years old, and it just like never fixed as I was growing up. So sometimes at night when I'm lying down, it's just like a nagging and constant thing. So for me, the process was interesting.
Oh, they're coming for us now.
And, yeah, this is it. It's Jeff. Jeff and his friends are on the way to get us.
This is a big sting. You guys are screwed.
It's too good to be true. I knew it.
We got you right where we want you.
So my process
No
was
dinner
actually
for you.
pretty funny because I knew about the DC, like the medical program in DC, but I was like, is this real? Sort of like what you were saying. So I called the dispensary and they set me up with a doctor's appointment and they helped me fill out the form and I went to my doctor's appointment. And I wasn't sure if I had to show up with like kind of a visible physical symptom. I was like, sir,
You started limping.
I can barely walk. No, but it was a nice process. You know, you meet with a nice doctor, you do everything you would do at a doctor's office, and you leave with a referral.
Mentioned that when I was in California just visiting years ago, up on Venice Beach, and this girl comes up to me on some roller skates and goes, "Your back hurts." I said, "No, ma'am, I'm fine." She goes, "No, your back hurts. You need to see my friend over there." And she points to like this doctor's office.
I'd be so flattered that
And I
someone's
was
coming
like,
on to me. Yes,
"Oh,
it does.
Yeah, I was like, "Thank you." No, I'm all right, thank you. But no, so like laws change different places,
Right.
and now with California legalizing, I think they're gonna tighten that up a little bit, so that won't happen anymore. But it's a wild west out there.
No, and I mean, it's a lovely, like, I think a lot of people are still very intimidated by the whole idea, but I mean, walking into the dispensary, like I said, it's like a waiting room, and then like white glove service, someone in a white coat will take you back to beautiful glass cases, or they will talk
not
you through
drug
the whole
dealers.
process. They'll even recommend that maybe
That's
you
the
only
fear.
try a little bit of this at first, but there are options. There are juices that are sold through a lot of the DC dispensaries.
Right, there's candy.
One of the dispensaries now has edibles. Edibles can only be made through the cultivation center's like processing center. So that's a difficult thing that I think a lot of folks in DC are grappling with. There are a lot of amazing home bakers that want to be able to contribute
Maryland
to this
won't have any
industry,
edibles.
but
That's the old hash brownie.
yeah.
But you know what's funny? So when I was growing up, like in the 80s, the drinking age in D.C. was 18, and the drinking age in Maryland and Virginia was 21. So everybody traveled to, because it's right there. Yeah, so what we would do is all the kids from Maryland and Virginia
Travel.
would come into Wisconsin, like Maggie's in Wisconsin Ave. I think I was gone by the time you were born, but Maggie's, if you could see over the counter, they would serve you. It was crazy. And Paul's, which is still in Wisconsin Ave, they would sell to anybody. And then but they'd set up all their
Like George Tunes on Wisconsin Ave.
Yeah, and
They would literally serve to anybody.
Yeah,
It's like
but
12
then
years
you go
old.
back to Maryland and Virginia. So I think with the weed, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Is that all
Every
of a sudden,
state is dealing with that. The neighboring states of legalized states it just pours out.
They're not saying that it's impacting minors using cannabis. They're saying that's
No.
actually not happening.
It's
Interestingly
adults.
enough, this
It's adults who
generation's not just that interested of the young people, it seems.
I mean,
No.
it's not cool
And
and
they may
sexy
be
and
at some
taboo
point.
anymore because now like mom and grandma smoke medical pot.
I know, it's like
and
Facebook, they're not going to get
My
it.
little brother is like super dismayed. He's 16, turning 17. His big sister produces a cannabis festival, and I think that has automatically made it not cool. He's like, seriously? Hi.
20 years ago, man, you would have been like the coolest
Yeah,
sister,
I know. I'm like,
coolest
I
sister
am
on the
cool.
planet.
But you know what's funny is if you look at even smoking, like smoking cigarettes, is at an all-time low, and not just. It is single-digit percentages when
and
it
that's
comes
what
to
they
people.
legalized.
And
So,
interestingly, that's not a thing in the cannabis community. Like, there aren't that many, like, you would think that a smoking community would be into
Crossover
cigarettes.
smokers?
It is just not a thing.
yeah, it's a small percentage.
Very
I know
small, yeah.
few people or people that do like spliffs.
I know
put,
more
like,
people that
tobacco
don't, yeah.
in their joints.
Let's talk about the festival for a
Yes,
while too.
let's do
So
it.
was pretty big. Last year was 5,000.
Yes.
And I was joking when you came on before we started talking. I looked at last year's website and it was De La Soul, and I'm a huge De La Soul fan. But this year you have Far Side.
We have the Far Side, and we also have Talib Kweli, who will be backed up by a full band, which is pretty exciting.
And this is a festival where we can go out to RFK, right? We can blaze up, we can get stoned, we can everything, right?
So,
And meanwhile, she's looking at me going, "No, you know
DC
that."
law prohibits public consumption. And I think that something that is important is that we're respectful of the community and respectful
Play
of
by the
Metropolitan
rules.
Police Department. I believe that things happened at the Cannabis Festival last year that happened at literally any concert that you would go to. And like I said, there were no arrests, no incidents of violence. It was a very peaceful gathering and very diverse.
That's a round of applause there on that one. Seriously, my son's into the rave thing.
Yeah,
and he's 25 and he's into the EDM and
they still do that.
And what's that?
Those underground parties? Oh yeah.
And I mean, he's not into the drugs and the Molly and everything else that's going around there.
How do you know?
No, you're a good parent to know.
But
what's going around there.
You know, he goes around with a group of people
Molly.
that like pick up people that are OD'd and get them help. Get them
so there's a group called Dance Safe that will actually be at the festival, and also Baltimore Harm Reduction Coalition, obviously based in Baltimore.
SSDP, Students for Sensible Drug Policy. There's folks out there, younger folks out there, who are making the experience safer. So there's safer ways to do that. You can do it, and if you overdo it, there should be people
These
there.
groups show up to things like these EDM shows,
Check
and
your
it's like,
pills,
okay, so like realistically, probably someone in this crowd is going to try using something.
Right,
and so they walk through these crowds, and they have little backpacks on and T-shirts, and they hand out information, so that we're not, it's like they're not judging people for what they choose to do with their bodies, but it's like, please be aware.
Make it more educated.
Some of the issues.
Yeah, well, he was telling me they'll take them into like a medical tent where there's no judgment. It's like, hey, we're going to medically look at you. I mean, if you need to go to the hospital, you're going to go to the hospital. But if you just need to come down, that's cool. But I mean, he told me he bitch slapped one. He says there was one girl that was passed out on whatever, and everyone is like doing selfies with her. You know, she's like passed out, and they're all like, hey, and doing this. And he went up and he actually pulled 3 people off, and he says, have some. If you don't have any respect for her, have some for yourself.
Yeah,
and
you look like that guy.
It's that whole not frontal lobe fully developed thing, right?
Yeah, I guess.
I'm like, really?
But
I thought the days of taking photos with passed out girls were kind of over with 2015.
Yeah, you're a big man.
How many people do you expect this year? Last year was 5,000, and I was looking at the pictures. It looked pretty successful.
It was great last year.
Really
We're scaling up carefully, so we're going to go to 7,500 this year. We just want to keep really good vibes, really good times, and we want to be able to offer everybody that comes to the festival the maximum experience possible.
So what's the experience? So I show up, and what happens?
So you show up, you'll come through the gates, and there's going to be an education pavilion that's sponsored by Weed Maps. They will have classes all day. Kevin will be speaking on a couple of the panels. So everything.
Now, this will apply to D.C. education as well as Maryland and surrounding communities and whatnot, though?
There's activists from all over Maryland, D.C., Virginia.
We have 26 groups participating, including ACLU Maryland. The Green Party will be there. Students for Liberty, so libertarians will be on site. Students for Sensible Drug Policy, Drug Policy Alliance, Marijuana Policy Project, all of the normal chapters from the region will be there.
Okay.
So you'll walk in, and there will be an education pavilion where in the morning there will be yoga classes, there are entrepreneur contests. We'll have a really good policy discussion about the new administration. So in the education pavilion, there's a grow school, so you can learn about home growing. There's going to be a big vendor pavilion with about 50 local and national companies that will be selling different wares. Photo booth, there's going to be a game zone, there's the munchie zone. One thing about the festival last year that was quite funny is an image that went viral was of the difference between the beer line and the pizza line. This year we're bringing in double the food trucks. But there's like a great VIP lounge, and I mean, all day we have a wonderful concert, which, Talib and the Far Side will be headlining. Between bands.
Awesome.
I'm so excited. But between bands, we have members of Congress get up and speak.
That's hip-hop, John. Hip-hop's like rap.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
It's very rhythmic.
Like KC and the Sunshine Band, those guys?
Exactly like that, John.
But we have members of Congress speak between bands. We have representatives, representatives from our advocacy group. Last year we had Congressman Blumenauer from Oregon speaking. We had Eleanor Holmes Norton speak. We had a couple of congressional candidates and some D.C. council members.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah, this year we have a bunch of people confirmed already. So they'll speak between the bands. The advocacy groups will speak. There will be fun giveaways. It's a really great day. People should bring their picnic blankets and plan to just hang out.
And how do you get tickets?
At nationalcannabisfestival.com. I'm going to spell that only because a lot of people don't know how to spell cannabis. Put that I in there, that pesky I. National, you got that part. It's cannabis, CANNABIS, festival.com.
I just learned how to spell that today. I'm totally not lying.
It can go in any direction.
I always
seen it
spelled
all.
it WEED. Yeah. That's how I...
Exactly. It's shorter and easier that way.
You should buy the national misspelledcannabis.com.
I should buy all of those, you're right.
And just shoot it right over there.
It's not a bad idea.
Just spell it whatever way the hell you want.
Tickets are $35, if you want to just come down
bad
for the
at all.
day.
Oh, that's a
It's
good
great.
day
Yeah.
for a festival.
And if
I love
you,
RFK too.
If you want to come to year-round events, we have a VIP package that's $255, and that gets you engaged with our sponsors, vendors, other VIPs.
You had a lot of vendors and sponsors.
And
Yeah.
that VIP is not just a VIP for the festival,
No,
right?
it's year-round. We do events throughout the year. Next week we have a mini concert at Songbird Record Cafe in D.C. with Nappy Rhythm performing. Our VIPs will go to that for free, and then they'll attend an after-party for free. So I think the VIPs end up attending about 12 events per year, including the festival, and they are
It's
all-inclusive.
a yearly party pass.
But the most valuable thing, the reason that we started that is people in this industry want to get to know each other and they want to network. So instead of having a one-day middle school prom kind of atmosphere where no one's talking to each other, this gives you an opportunity to really build relationships with
Well, 'cause
people
it's an
and work
activist
together.
group, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's moving so quickly. I mean, I've seen a lot of things. Like, for example, if you look at gay marriage, that moved very quickly.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, this is very similar to that I never thought I'd see either. And it's
Marijuana took a lot of notes from, I think, the gay rights push. The whole coming out thing. People coming out and saying, "Listen, I smoke weed. Like, what are you gonna do with me?" And
Yeah.
It's your sons, it's your mom, it's everybody. So when you put it on the table, get to that personal level, it's kind of hard to be like, no, you can't smoke weed when the person's been normal in your life all your life.
But see, that's right. Where someone comes out and they're like, "I'm smoking weed," you're both like,
Did you see that article in Vice this week? Alyssa Mastromonaco, the president's advisor, President Obama's
that.
advisor.
Right.
No.
So she was the chief operating officer for Vice since she left the White House in 2014. She wrote
like
this
Vice.
incredible article this week in Vice about her cannabis use and how it almost prevented her from getting her White House job. How she had to be totally honest with them and be like, yep. How she quit for those 5 years and how she's back in the saddle again. And it was inspiring to hear another professional woman, especially someone as accomplished as she is.
At the highest levels of
She said in those 5
government
years, I'd
service.
drink some wine when I got home at night. I'd kind of maybe gain a bit of weight or wake up feeling kind of bad in the morning, but, you know.
But you see, now
back
I
in the
lived in New
saddle.
Mexico for a few years when I worked in TV, and our governor at the time was Gary Johnson. And
love you, Gary.
And Gary was great. Gary was a great
Yeah.
governor. He was a Republican, barely,
Right.
governor of a Democratic state, and he was always an advocate. Even when he was elected, he says, "I smoke all the time." He said that as governor.
Just common
so when he
sense.
ran for president, he's like, "Well, I promise I won't smoke for," and he was on Bill Marin.
I mean, at the rate we're going right now, we could possibly do with piping some cannabis smoke into the White House. Chill everybody out a little bit. Take it down a level.
he doesn't even drink though. That's
Everyone get some meatloaf and
Yeah, right.
ketchup
That's-
I don't
and make it
choose
happen.
Ultimate straight man.
As an Irish guy, I don't
Does
trust
he?
someone who doesn't drink. No, he didn't.
I don't believe that.
I know. Here's why I don't believe it, because here's the thing: is I drink a little bit all the
hard to
time.
believe.
So like John will text me at like 11 or 12 with some stupid idea. I'm like, that's freaking great. And the next day I'll read the text going, I agree to that. So I'm reading the president's text at like 7 in the
tweets.
morning. I'm like, those are drunk
That
tweets.
might be-
I know a drunk tweet when I
That might
see
be
one.
how you know he's not a drunk, though, because he stands by them all the time.
Well, yeah. I do
I
back
said
off.
I said that sober, and I still believe
I do
that.
back off and delete stuff. I'm like,
So
oh my god.
I think it's an Adderall thing because it gives you that like intense rush of confidence and inability to go to sleep. But he's that intense, like. Urgh.
yeah, but it's so time specific. That's what throws me.
That's true.
Wake
I'd like to
up every
medicate
morning.
our president, though. I feel like it would help him. He would be like happier.
He'd
He'd
be
be
a-
less stressed out.
he'd be fun
We'd all
high.
be less stressed out. He would be really fun.
He really
high.
would.
I don't want to drug people like him. I don't know why. I just don't trust it. Maybe he might be that guy. Like I don't do well.
I mean,
on
he
weed,
is
and
kind
like,
of
he knows
he's
he doesn't
kind
do
of
well.
cloistered at the White House. At least we know where he is, right?
Sean Spicer could use it. I watch his pressers every day. I
think he might be,
I'm addicted,
right.
and that poor guy has got an ulcer the size of my
Spice
fist.
Hour?
I watch it every day. I get so excited because I have no life, and I watch the press briefing every day. And that poor guy, he needs a joint the size of my car. That's
He needs a lot more. Yeah,
Speaking of,
I wonder what he feels every morning. Does it dread when he wakes up?
It has to
Anxiety?
be.
A loosening of the bowel? Like, what is that?
He's got to get up and read Twitter and go, oh,
here we go again.
But he doesn't even get up because he's getting woken up at 5 a.m. by some of these, like, why aren't you awake reading my tweets?
I know.
Why haven't you defended me?
I just was on InfoWars, and
No, I
See,
mean,
back in the Obama days where they're talking about how they were looking for people to do like hackers and like do like that kind of government work, but they couldn't find any because they have to drug test. And all your best hackers, people who sit by computers all day, smoke weed.
Do what they do, but beyond that, and I was fascinating. I read this about Apple because apparently in Silicon Valley, where they're doing all the innovative stuff, apparently they microdose LSD. That's the big thing.
I've heard that too.
So they take tiny little microdoses
Not
of
enough
LSD.
to do anything crazy. But
That's what Steve Jobs said. If not
Just
for LSD,
what a synapse
Kind of
on the
open it
brain
up
or
a
something.
little. Yeah.
he said
Like
if not for acid and LSD, the iPhone would never exist. He was a big proponent of that.
Probably like a pacemaker. You know, your heart's just
But you're right. But those
okay,
guys,
I'm ready. Let's go.
Those guys take tiny doses, like most days, and that's what keeps them open and focused. I mean,
now, see, if the drug war worked, we'd be kicking down their doors and going to get that LSD out, right?
But
Yeah,
microdosing is like the term of the year, by the way. I feel like it is everywhere. They're talking about how mothers or women with children who have postpartum depression are starting to look at microdosing.
Are they
as
doing?
potentially.
See, I'm out of it. I don't like.
Yeah,
I read that article the other day, and I thought from like Wired, and that's like a year ago, and I thought I was in the know. I'm so old now.
Well, I'll tell you what, the National Cannabis Festival, and that's with an A in it, CANNABIS Festival.com is where you can get more information on this. And Caroline Phillips is producing it. Not Carolyn. You can call her almost anything.
Oh, and if you show up at one, there will be a full hour of Meet the Maryland Dispensary Owners at the festival. Ooh. There's going to be an information session where you can meet different dispensary owners, learn about their dispensaries, locations, get some information. So when the market does open up, you can be first in line at Kevin's dispensary.
Yeah. Now, where's your dispensary?
It's going to be in Montgomery County, District 19.
Where?
Not sure yet. We still have to kind of wait for
My mom's in Montgomery County. You ought to open
that sounds
up
so Hunger
house.
Games, District 19.
District 19. I mean, the dispensaries are all kind of waiting right now until the growers get going, dispensaries get going, and then we'll start taking out leases and
I should have done that.
Selling legal weed.
Yep. And that is Kevin Cranford, who is
very well
formerly
dressed.
with Normal.
Yep, formerly with Really Normal.
And
now with
I got an envelope.
I have a present for you guys.
What's that?
You want to make sure you don't forget to give it to you.
Is it weed?
Clearly
no,
it's weed.
not. No, better.
That would be interstate.
It's freebies, so we've got to figure out how to give away some passes to the National Cannabis Festival.
I was hoping that you guys would use this to come down too. You're
I don't have a life.
Absolutely,
my wife says that. Yeah, I know.
But Kevin is a video guy by day. An advocate by night.
Guy, it's on your card.
Check out splim.com.
Yeah, Splim, and that's parenting and pot.
Parenting and pot. So a lot of people's folks might have drank. We're just parents that decide to smoke pot instead. We still read to our kids every night, carry them around.
I bet you yell at your kids a lot less
that's
than I
the
do.
first story in there. Yes,
a whole lot less. A whole lot less.
They have a really good piece up about kind of like cannabis safety in children, just like being responsible with your cannabis use.
Have a liquor cabinet. You have a cannabis cabinet.
Yeah.
Lock it up. Keep the keys hidden. Make sure
you know. To be honest with you, I'd rather have my mom have a couple of pounds of pot in the house than a rifle.
Oh, before we wrap up, my grandfather at 91, and he was hilarious because he was a federal judge, and he was pretty straight laced, and he was a great guy. I love the guy, but he at 91 he came to me. He goes, "Can you get some of that pot?"
Yes.
I'm like,
that's Grandpa.
And I was like, "No, I can't." Because at the time I'm like, "No." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "I've always wanted to try some of that pot."
I love that.
And he was 91, and he wanted to try.
My dad smoked with his third wife and her son, so he was probably in his 60s at the time.
Well, there's an organization called the Silver Tour that is for senior Silver Tour. It is for senior citizens who are cannabis activists, and this guy coordinates these busloads of senior citizens to show up at state capitals to lobby for legal cannabis.
Did you ever see that YouTube video? It's like the three the three elderly women, and they're like in their 70s and 80s.
They won't kill you.
And they've never tried weed, and they have them smoke weed. It was hilarious.
There was a priest, rabbi, and atheist one that came out, I think, last week.
Yeah, they had 3 cops recently, too. So
good. So good.
But the women, the elderly, they were hilarious. They loved it. They thought it was
it's an amazing thing.
All right, well, look, I'm getting hungry, so we want to say go to the National Cannabis Festival. Go to the festival and go to the website. It's CANNABIS Festival.com.
April 22nd.
April 22nd. And in 2 years, it'll be on 420, won't it?
It will be. It'll be like a college graduation of the National Cannabis Festival.
And that is Caroline Phillips, who is the organizer, producer of that. And with us also is Kevin Cranford, who is with, his website is Splim, and it's SPLIMM, and it is for parents and children and pot.
Not together. I mean, just
Not together.
Yeah, the pot's not for the children, to be clear.
No,
Just to
not
be clear.
until they're 18,
21.
potentially 18, 21.
So after you go to their websites, you can come to Facebook and you can find us, the Maryland Crabs. We have a group and we have a page. And of course, you can find us on Twitter at MD Crabs Podcast. And you can find me at Tim Hamilton 47. You can find John at Annapolis. Do you all have Twitter handles you want to talk about?
KCRAN7, KCRAN, the number 7.
And I'm going to have to spell cannabis again, but we have at NATL Cannabis, CANNABIS Fest. We're also on Instagram with the same handle. Check us out. It's going to be a really great day on the 22nd.
Yeah, we don't have Instagram yet because I'm lazy about
I am
that.
looking forward to it. I'm going to go down there.
Well, you guys do have great faces for podcasts. I don't know, photos, that might not be your thing. Just kidding.
Right. My wife says that. Yeah.
So you're going to now destroy this podcast, like delete.
That's
me.
right. Come on.
Dude, that's actually one of the
McDonald's
nicer
is
things
calling.
people
We're not
say.
going to eat at Metropolitan. You guys.
You get water and crackers.
But that's it. Hey, thank you guys coming from Baltimore, certainly, and from Washington, D.C. out
Thank
here.
you.
Having us.
We will
fun.
see you on the 22nd,
We will.
certainly. You will be there as well?
Yes, I will.
Absolutely. And we'll call that a wrap.
And my kids will be so high.
Oh, God.
All right, thanks, folks, for coming in.
Thank you.
This has been the Maryland Crabs Podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them in all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandcrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.